I'm going to teach you everything that I know about getting shredded and having abs. My starting point before was 20% body fat, and I managed to get down to a trim 8% body fat after I'm going to teach you the techniques of fat loss, which we're going to be going through in this video. And this video is perfect for you if you are someone that already goes to the gym. You go to the gym, you have a good amount of muscle mass on you. Maybe you're 1 to 2 years into your gym journey and you've got a bit of fat now. And when you're bulking up in the gym and you're doing resistance training, you get diminishing returns of your bulk. You get a lot more fat and you make a lot less muscle over time. And this is when it's a good time for you to cut weight. So this is a perfect video for you if you have a good amount of muscle mass, you're kind of going through your gym journey and you want to get down lean and trim. And there's two schools of thought when you're approaching this fat loss journey that you're going to be going on. There are the people that just want abs. You don't want to be this individual. These are the people that go on crash diets. So they'll go on a 1,000 calorie crash diet, completely depleting themselves of any nutritional value from their foods, feeling shitty, and the workouts just don't go that well. And these people also believe that doing high intense interval training, 15-minute ab circuit workouts from Athlean X, and doing these silly little workouts is just going to get them a good physique and a six-pack. You do not want to be these individuals, and you especially do not want to lose your muscle mass. Very important we don't do that. The school of thought that we want to be adopting is, I want to look appealing. And this is how I ended up with the physique that I ended up with. And it's because I had a monk-like approach of patience. I did a very small and slow calorie deficit. I made sure I had nutritional foods, made sure protein and carbohydrates are fueling my workouts very effectively. It's very important we do this when we're doing our resistance training, and we can make progress and even build some muscle during our cuts. When I was, as you can see in my before picture, I remember, and this is from just logging and tracking my workouts, which if you guys do, you should do this from now on. I've actually increased on some weights. So with incline press, I'm actually stronger. With my lateral raises, I'm stronger. But, maybe in my legs, I'm not as strong. But I really prioritize during my cut to invest most of my time and energy into having aesthetic muscles. And you just always want to be in this pursuit. So what we are prioritizing on your fat loss journey is in the pursuit of losing calories. Okay, sure. We go on MyFitnessPal. You know what to do. If you know what your maintenance calories is and how to lose fat and track your calories, and you don't know how to do this, video card on the top of a video I made explaining how you can do that. But most importantly, in this journey or pursuit of losing calories, we want to retain as much of our muscle mass as possible. You worked really hard to grow the muscle in the gym. You bulked up, you got fat, you didn't like how you looked, and now you're going to go on this fat loss journey. The last thing you want to do is to be impatient because you want to impress people in summer, get some sort of external validation, and risk losing the muscle, which is so much more valuable than losing fat, in my opinion. Even though, and this is like a very skewed outlook that people have, a physique with a lot of fat on it and a lot of muscle is not nearly as impressive as even someone like me, for instance. I don't have the most amount of muscle mass, but because I'm lean and I just have that physique where the proportions are just distributed a lot better, not having much muscle mass and being lean is something you can get away with and you actually look quite impressive. And this is how I did my 9-month transformation. I was super patient when it came to my calorie deficit. You don't want to be doing like that school of thought I mentioned of the crash dieting. You don't want to be cutting down too hard. You want to have a very small calorie deficit, 1% of your body weight per week maximum. Depending on what your body weight is, that can be around half a kilogram max. But two things that people do not talk about. This is very common advice of the calorie deficit, but one of them is to actually fuel your workouts during a cut. People don't really think about how to fuel your workouts, what to eat, what type of carbohydrates to eat, complex versus simple carbs. If I had to ask you, do you know what type of carbohydrates you should eat before and after your workout? You don't know. Good. I'll tell you guys. But then also the timing of our meals is just so important. You can have 2,000 calorie allowance throughout the day. This is your allowance to lose weight. Now, depending on what your maintenance calories is, that's something you're gonna have to calculate. And again, you can watch the video that I plugged in on the card at the top. But depending on when you have these 2,000 calories, just the timing of it can influence your mood, hunger, and energy positively, or it can work against you. And you genuinely need all these three factors of mood, hunger and energy to be at your advantage. You don't want to be low energy because you're going to have bad workouts and your strength in the gym is going to suffer as a result. You want your hunger hormones to be in check. You don't want to feel hungry all the time because then you're going to be binge eating. And this is when people fail their diets. And it's just from not knowing when to time their meals, which is what we're going to get into. And of course, you want a good mood as well, just so quality of life, right? If you're in a good mood, you're doing a diet, which, like I've said, it took me 9 months to do this diet. Now, while there are sacrifices to be making and everything's not perfect, if we're optimizing all three of these things, then we're going to have a very successful cutting diet. And the way we're going to be doing this is with an intermittent fast. So as an intermittent fast, we know that these last for 24 hours. So you're going to be sleeping 8 hours. This is typically when protein synthesis takes place. You've had your workout, you've had the protein the night before. Good. You wake up. This is the morning to the afternoon. We are going to be fasting for 8 hours and then we're going to be eating. This is our eating window. This is where the magic happens. This is where you get this is where you get the abs and you get shredded. If you can last these 8 hours, the rest is so easy. And you want to be, we're going to be going over simple carbohydrates, complex carbs, and also the protein sources. And you're going to have 2,000 calories of allowance with these three different food groups. And depending on where throughout the day we allocate it is going to make a big difference. And with an intermittent fast, we're going to be having it during this eating window of 8 hours. This is where the magic happens. If you can last this and stick it out, then we can have our 8-hour window of eating. So I'm going to take you guys through kind of like a day in the life of how I approached my morning, afternoon, and evenings for that 9-month period where I made that body transformation and literally got shredded. So you've woken up in the morning and I advise you go on the walk. This is a steady state cardio. This is very low impact. You can do it on an empty stomach and you can just have a coffee and a water. You want to have a water because it will make you feel full, boost your metabolism, and it's just really good to have. You also want to have a coffee because it's going to suppress your appetite hormones. And this is called ghrelin. The hunger hormone ghrelin just basically tells your brain if it should be eating or not. You want this hormone to kind of work in your favor. So by having coffee and water, we're optimizing for that. I can't fast for 8 hours. Here is my solution. If you cannot make it through these 8 hours of fasting, then these are your options of foods you can eat. You don't actually need to starve yourself, believe it or not. You can have high volume, low calorie foods. So these are foods that can be high in fiber. They're going to make you feel full in the stomach, but very minimal impact on your calorie count. And this is why I said you should be walking in the morning. If you get your 10,000 steps in the morning, this will kind of eliminate any of the foods that you actually eat. So you can basically eat those free of charge. You want lean proteins, chicken, sardines, and tuna. Tuna is especially good. You can mix all these foods together, by the way. And vegetables are obviously like probably the best options you have. Carrots, broccoli, and peppers, any vegetables are great. And then, well, specifically fruits that's high in water content. So you've got to be careful with what fruit that you eat. But if you have strawberry, grapes, watermelons, any sort of berries, they're really high in like water content. And that's going to be a really good option for you. The reason why we're having high volume, low calorie foods is so we not so we can just feel full, but so we have the least amount of insulin spike. As soon as you eat any food whatsoever, your insulin is going to spike, your hunger hormone is going to go up. And the more and longer you diet for, your insulin sensitivity gets more sensitive the longer you go into your diet. And you want to make sure that you're not spiking it too much. You want stable insulin levels. And this is why we fast for 8 hours. Or at worst case scenario, we'll be having foods that don't spike our insulin too much. This way, we're not going to binge eat. We're not going to have any energy crashes, and we have energy for later on in the day. We have now survived the 8 hours, and for the pre-workout meal, we're in an 8-hour window. And now this 8-hour window before the gym is when we can actually have our first meal. So like I said earlier, if you have a 2,000 calorie allowance during your 8-hour window, it's a good idea to split half your calories before your gym workout and then half your calories after the gym workout. Ideally, an hour before the gym is when you should be finished with eating. You want to have simple carbohydrates. You want simple carbohydrates because the muscles, and look, we're just going to get into basic science here, is ATP. ATP is the energy that your muscle is using. So anybody that tells you otherwise, to not have any carbohydrates in your diet is just stupid. And any carnivore diet, keto diet, don't do this. Like, just don't cut out carbohydrates. You need carbohydrates to perform in the gym because the main energy source of your muscles is ATP. ATP comes in the form of glucose, and glucose can come in the form of carbohydrates. We want simple carbohydrates before our gym workout because simple carbohydrates is quick, fast energy release. We have complex carbohydrates, but we do not want those before the workout. Complex carbs are like rice and them types of foods that take a while for your body to digest. We want quick, so protein bars, bagels, bananas, yogurt, bread. These are really good to have before a gym workout, ideally an hour before the workout, and then you'll feel really good. And you can have half your protein allowance throughout the day. So I'm sure you guys know the term of having 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. During a cutting phase, I'd have probably 1.5 times that amount, and just have that protein, half of it before and then half of it after on your final eating window once your workout is finished. So congratulations, you've now finished your gym workout, you've had a great workout, you've had the 4-hour eating window where you had the simple carbohydrates and you maybe had half your protein allowance for the day, depending on what your calorie count is. You want to be counting your calories on MyFitnessPal. And again, like, look at the video card that I attached if you don't know how to calorie count. And you've had your gym workout. Now we are on to the final 4-hour eating window. So in this eating window, it's a little different to the pre-gym. So after the gym, we want to have our protein. So chicken, fish, beans, nuts, whey protein. And again, like, I've just listed these foods. Like, you can just Google like complex carbs and proteins and kind of plan these meals out as you wish to. You can make your own meals. And during this 4-hour eating window, we want to have complex carbs. So we're going to have around 1,000 calories. Again, if your maintenance calorie allowance for the day to lose weight is 2,000 calories, half of that complex carbs, so brown rice, sweet potatoes, oats, whole pasta, kidney beans, and fruits like dates. Complex carbs are different to simple carbohydrates. You don't want to be having simple carbs. These spike your blood glucose, and that's fine if you're going to have a workout. Again, it's using foods to fuel your workout. If we have complex carbohydrates and our blood sugar levels are stable, then we are less likely to binge eat. This is truly what screws people up when it comes to dieting. They do not understand different types of carbohydrate sources and when to time them. If you're having a simple carb, imagine this. Imagine you have a simple carbohydrate at this point in the eating window. What do you think is going to happen? You're going to binge eat because your insulin spiked up, your hunger hormones are going crazy, and your blood sugar levels have gone up. That's when you're going to binge eat. You can eat so much simple carbs, but when you have complex carbohydrates like sweet potatoes, brown rice, very satiating foods, man, you're not going to eat. And that's why you want to be having this carbohydrates, this form of it, the complex carbs, after your workout. You're not going to be binge eating. It's going to keep you in check and make sure your diet is going smoothly. When you go to the gym, you want to make sure that you're doing a form of cardio after your workout. So you've done your resistance training, then you're going to be doing something called zone 2 cardio. This is a form of running on a treadmill that isn't that intense. You don't want to be sprinting and trying to set a 5K PB. You want to be just going on a treadmill and having a slightly elevated heart rate. So when you go for a walk, that is zone 1 cardio. Zone 2 cardio is just above walking. It's a very light jog. You should literally be able to have a conversation with someone. That's the type of jogging speed you want to do. And you want to do at least 1 hour of zone 2. And that will burn around 600 calories. Obviously, this is like dependent on your weight, but doing 1 hour of zone 2 cardio is definitely achievable. This is not like a hard stuck rule that you need to follow. You want to be doing cardio after your gym workout. That's going to ensure that while you are doing an intermittent fast, you're not only just going to be fasting for 8 hours and then kind of eating very sensibly during that 8-hour window, but pairing that with your gym workout and zone 2 cardio, so you lose extra calories, that's really good. And that's going to make your deficit even more. And to be honest, like this, there's nothing wrong with burning these extra 600 calories. And in my opinion, you can allocate more complex carbs after your workout, or if you feel the need to have more simple carbohydrates before your workout, from burning that extra calories, then you are more than welcome to do that. And again, just going back to the beginning, with those 600 calories that you are going to be burning off, it just goes back to these two school of thoughts of, do you want to keep and retain muscle, or would you want to go on a crash diet, be the cardio guy that loses 600 calories and then ends up just looking like absolute trash? You want to be prioritizing our muscle and losing calories very gradually, very slowly. So any calories you lose from cardio, especially zone 2 cardio, my recommendation is you actually just eat more food. Here's a quick TLDR summary of everything that I just went through. So when you wake up in the morning, you want to have a coffee and a water. This is again to suppress your appetite, increase your metabolism. You want to go for a walk during this time as well after you've woken up. And then when you go and have a coffee, and you want to have a high volume, low calorie foods. And I've listed them earlier in the video, you can check them out. And before your workout, you also want to have a simple carbohydrate to actually have quick release energy and half of your protein allowance. So that would mean that you're adequately fueled for your workout. The carbohydrates, the glucose in your muscles are quickly available, so you perform your best during your workout. And then after your workout, you then have your complex carbs and then your protein. So having your complex carbohydrates will mean you can stick to your diet. It will keep your blood glucose levels very stable and will make sure that you're not going to be binge eating. And then having adequate amount of protein will mean that when you sleep throughout the night, hence the intermittent fasting period, this is where the magic happens and the muscle building really does take place. Real quick, if you enjoyed this video, I've got a school community in the description. I'll be going through my behind the scenes on my lifestyle and meal plans that I have and everything else that got me from being quite fat, to be honest, to being in very, very good shape at low body fat. And I want to create a community of like-minded men and just giving kind of just like the reality of just what it takes to actually be lean. A lot of people on social media are lean year round, and I'll just be here to tell you, just plain and honest, that you can't be lean year round, but it can definitely be done in a much healthier way, and a lot more smarter tactics can be used for you to get your dream physique where you are shredded. So if you are a guy that has some muscle mass, you go to the gym, you want a community of people and you want me to kind of coach you through how to get a physique like mine and to have this school of thought of having more muscle and resistance training and approaching this in a smart way, join, link in the description for my school community. Thank you for watching, more videos soon. Who the fuck's calling me, bro? Say sorry to the camera right now for ruining the video for the boys.
Sorry, brevs.
Sorry, brevs.
Sorry, broskies.
Peace out, pussies.